Okay, hello everyone. First off, let me introduce myself. My name is Louis. I'm a first year medical student in Indonesia, and I'm also an avid chess player, mainly online. About 2300 in online blitz strength. And so I just want to show a bit of what I've been studying so far. Um, Here we're going to discuss about the Nimzo-Indian defense, the Kmoch variation. So we can obviously go through the opening moves with d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, and bishop b4, showing which is the Nimzo-Indian defense. And after f3, which is the Kmoch variation, there are two ways to play this position. First one is to play c5, and the second way is to play d5. So I am going to be, in this specific video, I'm going to be explaining the move c5, which is a trickier way to play against the Kmoch variation. I am going to make another video about the move d5, which I believe it's a technically more solid way to play, but this is for those who want to surprise their opponent with opening preparation. And we will go with the very advanced lines, so don't be afraid of these lines, because I will leave the PGN of my analysis in the description below, so you can download it for yourself. You can open it with ChessBase or any other software, basically. And so after c5, let's continue. There are two moves here. First off, the move e3, which is very solid, and the move d5 here. Let's just take away any the bad moves. e4 runs into c takes d4, queen d4, knight c6, and this is already pretty bad for white. And after queen e3, we play d6 to prevent e5, very important. And after bishop d2, showing that white wants to castle queenside here, because if white was to try to castle kingside with like bishop d3, eventually like bishop d3, then it would be first off blocked by its own pawn, and white would really want to, in the ideal world, get in g4 h4 to try to attack black's king once. Oops, ignore that. To attack black's king once black has castled kingside here, but we will see that that's not really a realistic plan, because for example we can just simply castle, and after white castles we can play the move a6, hinting at playing b5 to open up the position, and after king b1 we play b5. And here if white gets scared and like takes on b5, then this can go pretty south pretty quickly here, because after the move bishop c5, so we can see that there was actually two purposes of playing the move d6. First off, preventing e5, but also allowing the bishop to retreat to c5, making use of this better diagonal with the tempo. And after the move queen d3, we can simply take on b5. If white becomes scared of like black pushing the pawn to b4 and decides to take it with the queen, then this is already pretty much strategically lost, because we have knight d4 here. Knight d4, queen d3, and we play the move queen b6, placing our queen on a good square to facing the king, as well as hinting at the move bishop a6. So after bishop e3, trying to dislodge the knight, we can play the move first off e5 to solidify the knight. And a mistake here, a blunder, would be already knight g2, because we can gain a tempo with bishop a6, and after queen d2, simply take on e2. And no matter how you look at it, white is going to lose a piece here, tactically speaking, because for example, bishop takes c5 runs into knight takes c3 with check, so white needs to recapture, and we simply take the bishop and we're up a piece. So that's how it could go really wrong if white decides to play e4 in this position. And so we're not going for e4, then what can white play? Okay, so I'm going to go over the maybe more common in online blitz, but less critical, because it's not as complicated. After e3, I've done some analysis, and we can simply castle here, and after bishop d3, only then do we play d5. Typically in the Nimzo-Indian defense, we don't want to play d5 unless before we castle, because normally there would be some ideas with like queen a4 check, and some annoying ideas like that. So we just need to get our king to safety, and for example, c takes d5, e takes d5, knight ge2, knight c6. And black is simply going to follow the principle of applying pressure to the center. After castles, we can see this principle being reinforced with rook e8, bishop. Okay, and here there are two main moves. a3, which 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 is interesting. It has been played a couple like a couple hundred times, but I don't think it's very objectively very good. And there's also the move bishop c2 in this position. Bishop c2 obviously aims to add protection to the d4 pawn, and we will go over these two. But first off, I just want to go over the move a3. We're simply going to take on c3, and after b takes c3, obviously if white captures on c3 with the knight, then you lose the pawn on d4. So b takes c3, and after that we're simply going to play b6, the move b6 here. And the plan is pretty simple actually. From here on, we can just like basically autopilot our moves if our opponent doesn't make any threats. We're going to play knight a5, bishop b7, rook c8, trade in the center to open up the c file and put our knight on c4. I'm going to show an example game, a sample game here of how this plan could come to life. Bishop b7, rook a2, which is the most played move, knight a5, rook e2, rook c8, knight f5, and we simply take on d4 as I said before. The reason being that we want to make the rook better by opening up the c file, and now we can simply play knight c4. g4 was played in the game, and after that we can simply play g6, knight g3, and we can see also with the weakness that white had created with b takes c3, this pawn is also isolated. So in some positions, queen d6 could pick up this pawn. And so rook e6 was played in the game, just defensive move, and h4 was actually a mistake because we have queen d6, and after king f2, we can simply take on a3. h5, knight c4, rook g1, rook e8, just retreating, and we're simply gonna defend here, because it is important to be careful still of your opponent's threats. And so queen f1, obviously the white queen wants to go to h3, so we're simply gonna play knight f8, queen h3, and there are actually no threats here, but rook c7 is just an additional adds an additional defender. Rook g1, bishop c8, knight f5, queen f6, queen g3, and now we simply take the knight, decreasing the amount of attackers. And after g takes f, rook c6, now we can see that this rook was very important in playing a defensive role with rook c7 and rook c6, and so now it's a very well placed piece, and there is actually no danger here at all if we simply defend. And now we can see that after the move e5, strategically it's quite bad for white, because these pawns are simply gonna roll if white does nothing about it. We'll just follow the game without any commentary to see how this position ends up pretty bad. And obviously after rook b7, attacking the queen and wanting to push b4, white saw nothing better but to sack the queen. And the game is pretty much over here, but black still does need to stay focused and pry open the position by playing accurate moves like king e3, playing g5, and then playing the move g4. Finding the weaknesses, trying to take advantage of them, infiltrating with the queen, and from here on, the rooks do get active, but if we find the correct moves, like for example king f6, giving up the knight on d7, then this position is winning with 3 extra pawns. So we don't need to continue from this game. I do want to say that these players are not bad players at all. They are 2300 plus players, so this is a trusted way of like how your actual games could go. So that is the example of e3. So e3, as I told you before, we simply want a castle and then play d5, and then eventually play knight c6, b6, bishop b7, knight a5, rook c8, and it's pretty much autopilot from there. And instead of e3, wait, actually no, I haven't gone through one line, I apologize. Bishop b3, d5, takes, knight e2, knight c6, yeah, and here. Instead of playing the move a3, there's also the move bishop c2. Or is it not in this position? Or maybe it is. Oh yeah, here. After white castles, then playing bishop c2. Let me just erase this. Oh yeah, after white castles, rook e8, and then bishop c2. After this, we can play the move b6. Simple. Very simple, and we get active play from here. Black is not worse at all. So a3, we play the move bishop a5. This may seem like odd if you've never seen this before, but if you know in Queen's Indian Defense, some old lines, like maybe in the 70s, I believe like Yasser Seyron played a game with the bishop and a5 after playing b6 and c5, and basically we don't need to be afraid of the bishop getting trapped ever. After king h1, we play bishop a6, two very active bishops. And rook e1, rook c8, knight f4 is already a mistake because it seems natural, but we can simply take on d4 here. And after e takes g4, we're simply taking on e1, queen e1, and knight d4. And this bishop is being attacked. So that's already winning a clean pawn. And we don't need to proceed from there, basically. We can see that these two bishops are already a pretty good compensation for misplacing the bishop on a5 here. It may seem misplaced because like at some point there may be threats of like b4, but if we simply take the knight on c3, we don't have any problems at all. So yeah, that's just something to be wary about. So we've already gone through the move e3 here. So we're going to go to the critical line of playing the move d5. In this position, a couple of very strong grandmasters have played this with both sides, and Ding Liren decided to castle in this game. And it might seem like after e4 white gets everything because they have the center, like what the Kmoch variation is supposed to give. But we have the thematic like Benko Gambit type move like with b5. Obviously aiming to destroy white's control over the center, but after e5 and... Okay, yeah, first off I do want to mention that there are two moves here, which is the first off the move knight h3 to develop the knight to the edge of the board, as well as e5. And also the and also the bad move c takes b5. So in terms of priority, maybe I would discuss the bad move first, then second, less optimal move, and then probably the best move. So we're going to go with the worst move of all, which is c takes b5, which simply loses because e takes d5, and after e takes d5, rook e8, knight ge2, d6, bishop g5, bishop b7, and simply this pawn is going to be lost, and you can't do anything about it basically. For example, we can continue the game that occurred between two 2000 or 2100 players. Queen d2, rook e5, queen f4, bishop c3, bc3, knight d7, king f2 is already a mistake because bam, rook takes g5, winning the game on the spot because, for example, queen g5, then knight d4 takes and winning the queen. Okay, that's a nice miniature. And then I do want to mention that in this position after b5, and obviously not c takes b5, knight h3 has been played, but we will show a game by two grandmasters, 2500 plus. The game continued b takes c4, bishop takes c4, e takes d5, bishop takes d5. We simply take the bishop off, and we play the strong move bishop a6. Tempting, obviously, white to take the bishop, to take the rook on a8. And after the game continuation, queen takes a8, queen h4 was played, and knight f2, knight c6, and basically white queen is trapped. But it doesn't seem materially that bad because like after queen takes f8, king takes f8, the material is technically even. However, we can see by these arrows that the pieces are way too active here. So either the knight can come to d4 or e5. Here the game continues bishop e3, knight e5, g3, knight f3, king d1, queen f6, and king c1 was a mistake. Obviously it was a blunder because bishop c3, bc3, queen c3, and boom. White loses another piece and is getting mated. So that's what happens if knight h3 is played. We have an idea at least of what could happen. And after b5, there's also the very critical e5 move. And it gets very sharp from here. Knight e8 was played in the game between Mamedyarov versus Ding Liren. Ding Liren playing the black side. And obviously knight e8 wants to has either one of these two ideas, d6 or f6, to undermine the center. And we can see that the problem of the move f3 was that it takes away the f3 square from the knight. So f4 is basically a must. Otherwise, a move like, for example, d6, which is already a bad move, we can play knight c6, bishop f4, and then play f6. Knight h3, and then take on e5. Takes b5 and then a6. Basically, if we play b5 and then like our opponent, if we don't have anything better and our opponent takes on b5, we can at the very least, play a Benko Gambit type position with playing a6 and getting activity. And after a3, bishop c3, bc3, a takes b5, bishop takes b5, queen a5, a4, queen c3, king f2, c4, very strong. Queen d2, queen takes d2 here, and then take on d6, and basically this position is just lost for white. So yeah. So in this position, instead of the move d6, we are going to look at the objectively the best f4, obviously giving the knight a square on f3. And after this, we can simply take on d5, c takes d5, and play d6, knight f3, and a6. a6 obviously because we don't want them to take here on b5, and we didn't play a6 before because like the center, chipping away at the center is like our main priority. So if we can do it, then we should do it. But if like after knight f3 the center is already well reinforced, then we can't do it. So like just improve our position. And after the move bishop d3, c4 opens up the square for the bishop on c5, as well as tempts our opponent to go for the sacrifice, like the Greek gift sacrifice with bishop h7. This was actually played between Mamedyarov. This was played by Mamedyarov versus Ding Liren in 2019. And king takes h7 continues, and knight g5, king g8, and queen h5. And Mamedyarov probably thought that after like bishop f5, g4, and bishop g6, after queen h3 isn't like the pressure like way too much, like eventually f5 is gonna come, right? But no, because because black has the extremely strong f5 here. It seems counterintuitive because it allows the knight on e6. But after queen e7 and knight takes f8 and queen takes f8, black is the one with the better position here because, first off, this center is about to collapse. And black does have the material advantage because black has two pieces for their rook, for one rook. And so the game continues bishop d2, knight d7, e6, knight c5, and I don't need to commentate basically the rest of this. I'll just show you the game continuation. But that basically the pawns are going to be very weak here, as well as the d3 square for a great place for the knight. So castling, yeah, knight c7, giving a check, pushing the knight around, taking the pawn in the center. Just very defensive, but very clean. Taking all of the possible pawns on the board, and like there's no way you can mess this up. After knight takes f4, basically white resigned here. So very nice game. Again, I will repeat that you can check this game out in the PGN in the description below. And after d5, but it's obviously not lost because there is one critical moment after e5, and d8, and then f4, same position, d6, knight f3, a6, bishop b3, and c4. Here, instead of the tempting move bishop h7, we do need to look at the best move in this position, which is bishop c2. It does seem like if we don't know this position very well, then black could be in a lot of trouble, because basically white has everything. Like, he has a center, but we are trying to play with piece activity and chipping away at the center that is like basically overextended. So we're gonna play the move bishop c5 here, preventing the castling. And so after queen e2, we can play the move knight f6. Okay, and here there are like two main moves. I checked this with the engine that e takes f6 is an error, because rook e8 comes, and like after knight e4, we have bishop f5. And basically we can see that this bishop stops white from castling, so these two pieces lined up on the e file is like very deadly, because white needs to take at least two moves to get both the king and queen out of danger from the e file. So something natural would be like knight fd2, then we play knight d7, g4, we take the knight, knight f6, king d1, trying to get the first piece out of danger, but after knight d4, knight e4, bishop e4, and f5, the very strong f5, then g takes f5, queen f6. And so there's obviously the threat of queen d4 picking up the bishop on e4. And it's not possible to stop this. So objectively, if we follow our analysis accurately, we should not be getting into any trouble, and our opponents rather can get into deep water here, because it seemed quite natural there to just simply take the knight on f6, and it seems like white has no problems, but we just need to be aware of the refutation. And instead of e takes f6, there's the move bishop e3. After this, we can simply play knight bd7. We will look at this move, e takes f6. Now, we have rook e8, knight e4, bishop e3, queen e3, knight f6, knight f6, g f6, knight e5, queen a5. Very, very important move. And there are two main moves here, king f2 and king d1. King d1 is losing on the spot, but let us go ahead and check with the engine here. King d1, I believe, is losing on the spot with the move d takes e5, or even f takes e5. So the engine is confused which one to go for, but I believe f takes e5 is like enough basically. Here, oops, okay. F takes e5, and basically after queen g3 we play king f8. And objectively there are no problems here. You can definitely go check the analysis yourself after king f8. You can definitely analyze this by yourself after king f8. This is technically winning for black, but it's good to know how you can convert this. And after rook e8, like for example before we played knight f6, and then like bishop e3 and knight bd7. Instead of e takes f6, we can play white can play e6 here, which is a mistake. And there's only one winning move here. It's counterintuitive, really. It really is. But we have the move queen b6 here. Any other move is worse. It's even losing. Because after e6, like for example, of knight b6, then white can simply take on c5 and push e7, and white is winning, right? But that's the thing. We have this very important move, queen b6. After queen b6, we're threatening to take on e3 and preventing the castling. But this does come with a piece sacrifice. So obviously, if white decides to capture on c5, we can take on c5 with the knight, and this pawn on e6 is very weak, and it's going to be lost. So we don't even need to look at that. We do need to look after queen b6 though. E takes d7, because after bishop takes e3, we do give up a piece here. And rook ac8, king f1 just getting out of danger, and we have to move rook e8, bishop f5, bishop f4, queen f2, bishop e3, rook c7, and our idea is simple, as you can see with the arrow, to push b4. a3, preventing b4, a5, we're still persistent, g3, rook e7, queen c5, h6, and d4. And we're simply going to take the pawn in the center, and you see b3 is actually the best move. But we can simply play c3, and these pawns are going to be very, very dangerous. Because b3 does allow queen c4, but we're simply going to trade, which is very strange. But we have this very strong move, retreating move, bishop c5. Obviously, because this bishop's on c2, we want to play rook e2 to pick it up. So like bishop a4 could happen, and rook a8. We're going to sacrifice the piece in this side of the board. We're going to play rook a7 and just win the piece back. And these pawns are way too dangerous for white to handle, and so the best move in this position is, oddly enough, knight c3, or even like rook c1, which I believe is like the objectively the best move. So you see that could possibly occur in a game, although it's highly unlikely you will ever cross this specific line in your game. So yeah, let's see. I think that's it for in terms of the refutation. Bishop c2, 5 knight f6. Yeah, okay. I mean, this position should be pretty good, at the very least here. After knight bd7, we're simply going to take the pawn in the center of the board, and it's going to be winning, strategically speaking. Yeah. So that does it for the bishop, for the d5 move on move 5 here, I believe. Basically, as a recap, what you need to know is we're simply going to castle, eventually play b5, and don't be afraid of putting our knight in e8, and just remember our opening theory. So yeah, this is a very complicated session, and I do advise this only to maybe advanced players, because there's a lot of moves that we need to memorize here. But if you ever improve and you want to expand your opening knowledge, then eventually, if you're maybe not ready for this video, in a couple of months or maybe a few years, you can come back to this video, and if you want to learn these lines, then you can always go to the BGN in the description down below. So yeah, thank you for watching this analysis. Hopefully you learned something. Yeah, and I'm hoping you just improve your chess, and yeah, have fun. Stay safe and have fun. Peace.